Galahad, we cannot indulge these kids no more. They're now so used to have us do their homework. It's ridiculous.
I hear you, brother. But they're just kids. You know what? Sometimes you just let them have some fun.
Screw you. Hello? Yes. We will take care of your case as quickly as possible, and could you please also send a copy of the poem to my email? Thank you very much. Bye.
I don't like that look on your face.
So we have a real case now. Someone indicated that Mr. William Carlos Williams is being racist in his poem, The Red Wheelbarrow, and that guy wants to press charges against Mr. Williams. He would like to have our assistance in finding evidence of Mr. Williams being a racist. We have some work to do.
So why exactly is Mr. Williams a racist in a poem?
Okay, so here's a poem. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater besides the white chickens.
Wait, that's the whole poem?
Yeah.
That's short.
Yeah, you see, he claims that the inspiration of this poem, The Red Wheelbarrow, was owned by a slave owner. Also, he said, we can easily relate the red wheelbarrow and the chickens to farm life, thus plantations. The fact that William Carlos Williams described the chicken as white also can be interpreted as racial discrimination. Well,
Okay then. Well, goodbye math. We got some work to do.
let's go.
Upon first reading The Red Wheelbarrow, many questions are raised. So much depends upon what? Why a red wheelbarrow? Who cares? Why does it have to be red? If it's glazed, is it glazed like a donut? Why is the first word in the poem not capitalized? Why do the chickens have to be white? Do the chickens have eggs then?
These questions are raised due to the brevity, simplicity, and emphasis expertly crafted in the poem. The first stanza, consisting of a mere four-word line, completely leaves the reader hanging. So much depends upon what? What is this so much in the first place? Is this something abstract or something concrete? The funny thing is that the first stanza is an incomplete thought, so it literally depends upon the next phrase. A red wheelbarrow. Also, the enjambment William Carlos Williams uses here adds emphasis to the word depend, and the stanza break adds emphasis to the word upon. By doing so, William Carlos Williams instilled curiosity to be pondered upon.
Then in the next stanza, Williams gives more detail about his first cliffhanger, that so much depends upon this red wheelbarrow. But, as Tristan Gann says, it is not just a red wheelbarrow. It is a red wheel line break barrow. The simple disjuncture of the word deconstructs it, Gans adds, forcing the mind to reconsider a kindergarten word such as wheelbarrow and giving it more emphasis. This reconsideration is accentuated by Williams's use of a new stanza immediately following. Gans also points out that Williams used the word a instead of the to describe the wheelbarrow. Not only does using the indefinite article add ambiguity that will be filled in by imagination, but the a also gives the stanza more emphasis by being the only stanza to start with a vowel.
Likewise, William Carlos Williams creates vivid visual imagery only 8 words into the poem. Images of a red wheelbarrow explicitly pop into one's mind. This is followed by image of a glazed rainwater and white chickens. The powerful imagery clearly depicts a moment in time while the wheelbarrow is still wet from the recent rain with chickens that have recently appeared from the storm. The imagery creates numerous interpretations and various but vivid visual perceptions. Just another layer to the poem that has been called the minimal masterpiece.
Going back to the beginning of the poem, William Carlos Williams clearly had purpose in leaving the first word of this poem, so, not capitalized. Although there is not an official literary device describing this unique method, the choice is interesting. The so adds to various interpretations by questioning what happens before the events illustrated by the poem. Williams suggests a consideration of the events that happen before this scene of the red wheelbarrow wet with rainwater. Was there a storm that glazed a wheelbarrow with rain? Were the chickens hiding during the storm? Does this storm add a deeper meaning to the poem?
The poem is a Rorschach's blot, according to William Logan. So much depends because of the assertion, but assertion is not argument. So much depends is a riddle without revelation, leaving a void where the conclusion should be. Basically, he's saying that the poem is open to interpretation and will mean different things to different people. Logan continues that the wheelbarrow, the glazing rain, and the chicken may do nothing for the reader. Williams claims no more than that they are obscurely to him. Other readers may have different emphasis, which leads to various perceptions. End of the poem.
In my opinion, the William Carlos Williams poem is about the effects of arduous labor. The rural shredding implied by the red wheelbarrow and the chickens implies that labor is occurring on this farm. Through this lens, the so much in the first stanza represents life, prosperity, money, and reputation. All of this thus depends upon the wheelbarrow, the work that is required to have a living. However, the wheelbarrow is red and glazed with rainwater. Both of these details suggest that the manual labor is red from the blood of the workers and is soaked with the harsh rain of the outside elements. Finally, the poem concludes that besides the red wheelbarrow are white chickens, representing the workers. These workers have been turned into something else that's not human, chickens, thanks to the harsh work that they do. These chickens are placed beside and on equal ground with the red wheelbarrow, symbolizing that these workers are only as valuable as the work that they do. Another interesting fact in this analogy is that the first word of the poem, so, is not capitalized. By doing so, Williams illustrates how the circle of work creeps up suddenly in a subtle fashion. First, the children go to school, get work that increases at a steady pace, and then they go into their studies more and more and more. Then they get their first job, work that until suddenly they die. This cycle is subtly introduced by the first word so, and represents the work analogy perfectly.
Lancelot, I cannot see racism in this very poem. To me, it is a perfectly fine work of literature. The poem is easy to read, as it does not have any complicated syntax, nor crazy diction choices. Its simplicity was revolutionary for its time period also. Starting the poem with a lowercase letter and using short stanzas leaves the readers with an enormous amount of space to imagine. See? Even you and I have completely different images in our mind about the poem.
I was hoping that William Carlos Williams could be the first poet I've ever read in my entire career. This poem really does not give me a sense of racism. On the contrary, I think this is a truly really merit that should be recognized by the community of scholars. What is that?
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I requested the Statesman to help us with the investigation. There's actually an astonishing amount of scholars in the United States, and those Statesman's agents are pretty darn smart as well. Sergio Rizzo is one of them. He's going to help us with this William Carlos Williams case. Let's take a look at what he has for us.
Hello, Agent Galahad, and whoever is working with you on this investigation. I have some new discoveries on this poem. You guys forgot one thing when you started analyzing this poem, to learn a little something about the poet.
Shoot, how can we forget that?
Anyway, I did some background checks on William Carlos Williams. He was born on September 17, 1883, in Rutherford, New Jersey. While he completed most of his early education in Rutherford in 1897, he was sent to schools in Geneva and Paris. In 1899, he returned to New York City and attended Horace Mann School in the neighborhood called Riverdale and Bronx. The school is also known as Hill Murray. He was admitted to medical school of the University of Pennsylvania. There at Pennsylvania, William met Ezra Pound, who dramatically influenced him. Williams was attracted to defying the rigid form and order of poetry at that time. Thus, he joined Pound, who was the leader of this revolutionary movement, the Imagist movement. The Imagists were tired of verbose poetry, so they focused on writing to avoid the redundancies of typical poetry, a tactic well exemplified by the Red Wheelbarrow. The Red Wheelbarrow also displays Imagist style by being very succinct and short, only 16 words long, the whole poem in only one sentence, which highlights the swift, uncluttered, functional phrasing hallmarked by Imagism. Likewise, the imagery is clear. After all, it is easy to depict a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater. It avoids being vague or obscure, which strengthens the poem's tie to the Imagist movement.
What a smart guy!
Can you just shut up for a minute? Agent Rizzo, please continue.
Later on, Williams went to Leipzig to advance his study of pediatrics. In fact, starting from 1924, he served as the chief of pediatrics at Passaic General Hospital. The Statesman's analysts believe that he will stay in that position for life. In terms of his writing skills, although he has rejected it before, he is definitely an Imagist, as you can tell from this very poem, The Red Wheelbarrow. He is also a flagship poet of modernism. His most important work is Spring and All, a collection of his poems. Unfortunately, T.S. Eliot's masterpiece, The Waste Land, was published at the same time as Spring and All, which undermined William Carlos' career as a poet.
So is there any evidence that William Carlos Williams is a racist?
No. Carlos Williams used a red wheelbarrow that belonged to one of his friends, Marshall, as the foundation of the red wheelbarrow. Indeed, Marshall was a slave owner. There is no direct evidence saying that Carlos Williams is racist. What he did in this poem, I believe, was simply giving you enough space of imagination. The racist element only inadvertently appeared in the poem.
Thank you very much, Agent Rizzo.
Well, I guess that's it. Case closed.
It seems like it. I'm pretty glad that we, as the poetry police, don't need to arrest William Carlos Williams. The Red Wheelbarrow definitely demonstrated his ability to control language and create a ginormous space for imagination. I'm glad that he's a modernist poet. I like that genre of writing.
But arrest a poet is still on my bucket list. When will I have the chance to cross it off? Come on.
Probably never, realistically. I think it's more practical if you go back to math homework.
Galahad, what are you doing? I thought the William Carlos Williams case is closed.
I'm trying to figure out if this poetry is up to code. Got ya!